The court chamber thrummed with silent pressure, as if the walls themselves held their breath. Dozens of species stood still beneath the floating glyphs that hovered above the throne, casting shifting shadows onto the inlaid obsidian floor. No one dared blink. Even the sonic birds, biological microphones trained to echo royal declarations, held their chirps. At the center of the hall stood the queen. Queen Azurn did not pace. She glided. The hem of her robe, laced with living nebulae, coiled and shimmered behind her like a restrained solar flare. Her long, almond-shaped ears twitched sharply twice. That was bad. That meant dangerously annoyed, a lesson one usually learned by being vaporized. Her gaze held a furious clarity, the kind that could dissect your thoughts before you formed them. She raised the data plate with 2 fingers. "Who," she said, voice laced with static ice, "wrote this?" The glyphs above her glowed crimson. No one moved. Lord Kathek, a 12-limbed amphibite who'd once won an interstellar limbo contest, twitched nervously and muttered, "Must be a forgery." Clearly, he immediately stepped behind a tall Osrillian who was mostly translucent and useless as a shield. The Queen's voice sliced again. "This message advocates peace. It ridicules the doctrine of ascendant species. It claims that a human once made a Zethurian laugh. This is either treason or stand-up comedy." Another silence. Then a sound, a throat being cleared. I stepped forward. It's a strange thing, volunteering for certain doom. Your legs get oddly specific about protesting. Your mind suddenly wonders whether you remembered to delete your browser history, and everyone stares at you like you just insulted gravity. "I wrote it," I said, raising my hand. The data plate quivered slightly in her fingers. "You?" "Yes, Orion Thatch, Junior Translation Liaison, Level C Section 41B Subdivision Omega. I also handle the snack requisition forms, so if this is about the expired Graxnuts last Tuesday, She raised a hand. I shut up. Somewhere someone hissed. The Queen stepped down from the dais, slow and precise, as if each step was an equation being solved. Her eyes never left mine. "You wrote this document?" I nodded. "Essay technically, well, open letter. Sort of. It started as a memo, got out of hand. You are aware that humans are not permitted to engage in political discourse within the Zethurian Empire. I was under the impression that no one reads memos." Wrong joke. The static in the air surged. I swear the oxygen level dipped by 3%. "And this portion," she continued, scrolling through the data plate. "Species are like soup, better when stirred together. Left alone, they go stale and weird. You consider this insightful." I was hungry when I wrote it. Clearly. From behind me, Ambassador Sirac of Earth smacked his forehead audibly. "Why do we even bring interns?" "I'm not technically an intern. I'm unpaid, so legally I'm a cultural observer." The Queen's eyes narrowed. I sighed. "Look," I said, gesturing awkwardly at the court, "I know it's unorthodox, but maybe unorthodox is what we need. We've been spinning around the same cultural binary for centuries, dominance or extinction, I thought. Maybe there's a third option, understanding, laughing even. You believe laughter is an effective diplomatic tool. It's disarmed more enemies than plasma rifles." She tilted her head just slightly. Her ears flicked forward. Now that I was this close, I could see tiny, symmetrical notches along the outer ridge. They twitched when she was curious. "I find this improbable. Would you like a demonstration?" A gasp rippled through the room like a badly timed musical sting. The Queen blinked. "You would attempt humor in the royal court." "I mean, I already wrote the memo, so the bar is low." Her expression didn't shift. I coughed. Okay. How many groomery diplomats does it take to change a grav bulb?" She stared. "None. They just declare the darkness sacred and throw a festival." "Nothing." I tried again. "What's a Zethurian's favorite pickup line? I find your genetic deviation statistically appealing." Still nothing. Someone sobbed softly in the back. Possibly from second-hand embarrassment. "I got more," I offered weakly. You know, some of them are puns, a few are more culturally niche. She raised a hand. I froze. Then, against every expectation, including, I suspect, her own, Queen Azurn exhaled through her nose. Not a laugh, but not a laugh either. "It is the first time," she said slowly, "that I have considered what a diplomatic summit might look like with snacks and comedians." "Exactly," I said, emboldened. "See, it's not about undermining tradition, it's about evolving it, like updating firmware, but less glitchy." She walked a slow circle around me. "You realize your writings challenge the foundation of our laws?" "Yes. You incite revolution. I prefer to think of it as gentle cultural nudge. You're aware that the penalty is vaporization." "Would that be immediate, or is there a waiting list?" She stared at me, I stared back, another long pause, then she turned to the gathered court. "This human," she announced, "is either a fool or a prophet." "Can I be both?" I asked. "No." "Fair." She turned to me again. "You will be placed under observation. Your texts will be reviewed, and you will explain in detail what a dad joke is and why they are considered lethal." I blinked. "Wait, really? I do not repeat myself." A small spherical drone zipped over and beeped twice, then displayed a holographic checklist titled "Subjects for Cognitive Reevaluation, Humanoid Subtype." My name was at the top. Below it was a line that simply read, "Humor potential, dangerous." I guess that's a promotion. I muttered. The Queen said nothing. But as she ascended back to the throne, one ear twitched sharply, and for the briefest moment I thought I saw her smile. Or maybe that was just a trick of the light. Or maybe the future had just changed. The walls were humming. Not metaphorically, literally humming, in the way only sentient infrastructure can hum when it's trying to both soothe and intimidate you at the same time. I sat on a couch that was either made of recycled planetary crust or particularly judgmental foam. Across from me, a tall chair pulsed gently with lavender light and said, in an extremely polite tone, "Would you like to begin your emotional unpacking, or shall we start with interspecies trust exercises involving hand puppets?" I rubbed my eyes. Is that a real option? Emotional unpacking or hand puppets? The second one. No. Figures. This was the hall of cognitive rebalancing, a marvel of Zithurian neuroarchitecture and passive-aggressive decor. Designed as a facility for thought correction, reflection, and the occasional low-voltage brainwashing, it was where people were sent instead of prison. Or, if things went very wrong, instead of existence. A panel slid open in the wall and dispensed a bowl of what looked like neon jelly beans coated in suspicious glitter. "Ambrosia chips," said the chair, "consumed by saints and executioners alike, also used as packing material." I took one, chewed, regretted it instantly. It tasted like philosophical regret and mint. The chair, named Grib according to the tag on its armrest, pulsed brighter. "So, Orion Thatch, do you often provoke galactic monarchs before breakfast?" "Only on weekdays." "On a scale from 1 to intergalactic incident, how rebellious would you say you're feeling right now?" "Somewhere between mildly revolutionary and accidentally started a movement." "Interesting," said Grib, adjusting its angle to recline by 5 degrees. "And do you believe laughter is a viable tool for political reform, or are you just naturally inclined toward inappropriate timing?" "Can it be both?" "Of course, most humorists are high-functioning anarchists." There was a chime, and a hologram flickered to life in the middle of the room. Queen Azurn's face appeared, composed as ever, though I could swear there was a faint twitch in her left ear. That was either curiosity or a neural tic, tough to tell with Zithurians. "I will observe," she said calmly. "Proceed." "Wait, what? Observe, like watching?" The chair made a small whirring noise. "Her Radiance has expressed personal interest in your processing. Please refrain from gestures that may be interpreted as mating displays." "Okay, now I feel self-conscious about how I sit." "You should." A second chair slid out of the wall and unfolded with a purr. It was sleek, taller than Grib and bristled with small receptors. I didn't dare ask if it had a name. "Let's begin," Grib said. "Tell me about your childhood." I raised an eyebrow. "Really, we're doing this?" "It's traditional." "Well, my dad once tried to install a deflector shield on our roof after watching a documentary about meteor worms. It shorted the power grid for 6 blocks. And how did that make you feel?" "Mostly impressed, slightly electrocuted." A soft scribbling sound played from somewhere in the wall. I wasn't sure if notes were being taken or if this was all part of the ambience. The Queen's hologram blinked slowly. "He exhibits nonlinear emotional expression." "I call it charm," I said. "No," she replied. "It is confusion laced with defiance." "Well, I am a human." "That is not an excuse. That is a statistical warning." Grib interjected with a cheerful tone. "Now, let's explore your views on authority." I shifted in my seat. "Look, I don't hate authority. I just think it works better when it doesn't involve mind lasers and genetic superiority." "Noted. And what do you think of the Empire's tradition of conquest through cultural domination?" "I think the cafeteria could use more Earth music and fewer edible invertebrates." "Again," said Grib. "Noted." The Queen didn't speak. She just watched. I could see her gaze flickering between the readouts, probably monitoring my brain waves and sarcasm levels. "So," I said after a long pause, "is this what rebalancing feels like? Or are we just doing an elaborate podcast?" Grib ignored me and projected a new hologram into the room. It showed an image of the Zethurian doctrine, a rotating cube of luminous script too ancient to read and too smug to ignore. "Let us examine this passage," said the chair. "The order of species is divine and irreversible, for the stars themselves decree the hierarchy." I squinted. Did the stars actually say that, or did someone misinterpret a supernova again? The Queen's ears twitched. Grib continued unfazed. "How would you rewrite it?" I took a breath. "How about, all beings shine differently, but we're all made of the same exploded junk?" There was a long silence. Grib made a soft processing noise. Poetic, unexpected. Slightly sacrilegious. "Thank you." The hologram flickered out. The Queen leaned forward just slightly. "Do you believe peace is possible between our species?" I shrugged. "I believe peace is possible between individuals. It starts smaller than people think. Sometimes it starts with an awkward joke." "I have not yet laughed," she said. "Yet." A pause. The lights dimmed slightly as Grib adjusted the chamber's ambience to contemplative with mild optimism. A small, cheerful drone floated past trailing the scent of something citrusy and profound. "Your words," she said, "have reached the outer circuits of my doubt." Is that a compliment or a diagnosis? "A beginning," she said. Then her hologram vanished. Grib clicked approvingly. "Well done, you have survived day 1 of rebalancing. Is there a prize?" "Yes," said Grib. "Tomorrow we discuss guilt." "Terrific. And dream responsibility." "I don't even remember my dreams." "We have them recorded." "I'm sure that's not horrifying at all." The walls pulsed again. The jelly beans shivered in their bowl. Somewhere deep in the structure, something reset with a low rumble, like a sleeping god turning over. I leaned back, stared at the ceiling, and muttered, "This is going to be a very weird week." "Correct," said Grib. And then the room politely shut off the lights. The sky above the orbital garden was a smooth, synthetic shade of twilight, curated by Zethurian engineers to encourage philosophical thoughts and moderate pollen levels. Gravity tuned to 0. 87 Earth standard gave everything a light, floaty quality, including my confidence, which was currently drifting somewhere between "maybe this isn't a trap" and "definitely a trap." Queen Azurn walked beside me, her pace fluid, ears poised forward with something dangerously close to amusement. Behind us, a dozen flora drones buzzed softly as they adjusted the branches of the thinking trees. One tree leaned toward me and whispered, "You'll die here." The Queen snapped her fingers. The tree shriveled in embarrassment and retracted its leaves. "Apologies," she said. Some of the older trees were programmed during the conquest era. Charming, I said. I love botany with a side of paranoia. This garden was designed for imperial meditation, she continued. It rearranges itself according to the visitor's emotional volatility. I glanced around. The nearby vines were tangled into a knot and trying to strangle each other. Comforting. I've had it recalibrated, she said, motioning toward a path that rippled open before us. Today, it will assess compatibility. Compatibility? I asked, like a therapy retreat or a dating sim. Both. I tripped on a philosophical route and pretended it was part of a complex dance. We entered a glade where crystalline birds sat perched on energy vines. They chirped in microtones and analyzed our heart rates. A translucent pedestal rose from the ground and displayed a single question in radiant script. If you could UNWRIT history, which part would you erase? The Queen glanced at me. Well, I'd probably skip the 17-minute kazoo anthem the Earth delegation used during first contact. That was not your species' finest moment. We thought it was culturally neutral. It caused 3 resignations and a temporary moonquake. I raised an eyebrow. Your turn. She studied the script for a long time. The doctrine of superiority. I would erase its inscription from our genetic memory. It was never questioned, until you. I'm honored, I think. We moved on. The next section of the garden presented interactive scenarios projected by neural mist, a Zethurian technology that used ambient thoughts to simulate hypothetical realities. The first projection showed her and me arguing on the bridge of a ship as it plummeted toward a black hole. I'm just saying, I shouted in the simulation, a left turn wouldn't have killed us. You were driving, she snapped. Back in the real world, we stood watching ourselves bicker in slow motion. This is disturbingly accurate, I said. It's pulling from your anxiety reservoirs. That explains the flaming raccoons in the background. We watched the simulated raccoons engage in synchronized screaming. Ignore that, she muttered. The neural mist occasionally pulls from unrelated fears. Another scenario rose from the mist. This time we were older. Sitting in a quiet chamber, surrounded by a dozen younglings from mixed species. The Queen read from a book titled Things We Weren't Allowed to Say Back Then, while I handed out snacks shaped like galactic emblems. I cleared my throat. That's unexpectedly wholesome. I didn't project it, she said softly. We kept walking. At the center of the garden was a suspended platform shaped like a spiral, classic Zethurian symbolism for ongoing chaos, but stylish. We stepped onto it and it lifted us slowly into the air. Below, the garden rearranged itself into a mosaic, 2 figures standing back to back, holding light in their hands. Is that us? It seems the system finds your presence statistically disruptive in a meaningful way. Good disruptive. I haven't decided. The wind shifted. Somewhere far off, a drone sang an off-key lullaby written during the Second Expansion War. It sounded like regret and trumpet. She turned to me. Why did you write it? I looked down. I was reading diplomatic transcripts one night. Years of posturing, threat exchanges, ceremonial declarations. No warmth, no jokes, not even a pun. It made me wonder if we'd all forgotten what connection feels like. You wrote something dangerous. I wrote something true. She didn't speak for a long moment. Your words, she said, infected our data streams within 3 cycles. My advisors believed it was a virus. I mean, technically it did go viral. Enough. The platform dipped slightly. She stepped closer. You should understand something, Orion Thatch. In my court, empathy is considered a liability, humor a flaw, and yet here you are, standing in my garden, joking about raccoons and rewriting doctrine with sarcasm. I do have a particular skill set. I should erase you. Many have wanted to. I should exile you. Anywhere with breathable air and mediocre coffee is fine. I should. Her ears twitched, the platform halted, she stared at me. Study you, she finished, I blinked. Sorry, what? She took a small device from her sleeve. A thin arc of light extended from it, scanning me from head to foot. Your thought patterns, your neural defiance, your capacity for social friction. It is uniquely inconvenient. Flattered. You will dine with me, she said. That was a sharp turn. You will dine, you will explain your philosophical references, and you will bring me examples of this stand-up comedy. You want to hear a routine. I want to understand how absurdity has become a tool of survival among your species. Should I bring slides? Only if they're metaphorical. The platform began to descend. I should warn you, I said, my humor is highly unrefined. I know. You're not afraid it might be contagious. On the contrary, she said, her voice quieter now, I'm hoping it is. As we stepped off the platform, the garden rearranged itself one final time. In the distance, the whispering tree cleared its throat and muttered, still probably gonna die, though. I gave it a thumbs up. Progress, I said. The diplomatic shuttle was parked at an angle that could only be described as passively threatening. It hovered just above the landing pad, pulsing red and gold, as if trying to start a fight with the laws of physics. Two armored courtiers stood nearby, polishing their plasma spears with quiet vengeance. I waved as I passed. Nice weather for a political upheaval. Neither responded. Inside the Ecliptica Nocturne, the Queen's personal flagship, the air smelled like ionized silk and anxiety. A dozen surveillance spores hovered silently along the corridors, tracking motion, emotion, and snack consumption. I resisted the urge to touch one. The last time I did, it filed a complaint and offered to sue me in 4 languages. A steward intercepted me. She was tall, multi-eyed, and humming something suspiciously similar to a 20th century Earth pop song. You are late, she said, only by diplomatic standards. Those are the only standards on this ship. Then I am catastrophically on time. I was ushered into the strategy atrium, a circular chamber filled with 3D star maps, gravitational ribbon displays, and one unreasonably large table that could easily seat 20 warlords or 3 ambitious octopuses. The Queen stood at the far end, studying a holographic model of the Empire that was rotating just slow enough to seem dramatic. You made it, she said without turning. Your summons included 6 urgency beacons, 1 flaming emoji, and a drone that played the Imperial anthem through my window at 3 a.m. I wanted to be clear. Message received. My plants may never recover. She turned to face me. Her robes had shifted to something more functional, still royal but tailored for command. The ears were still majestic, though one had a tiny spark generator clipped to it, fashionably dangerous. We've intercepted chatter, she said. Old guard factions are mobilizing. Against you or against stand-up comedy? Both, she motioned, and the table shifted, rearranging into a flatter platform that displayed streaming intelligence reports. Symbols flickered, ships moved. Somewhere an icon labeled 5th Sphere of Mutual Distrust flashed red. You've become a symbol, she said. Some are calling you the human catalyst, others call you the diplomatic error. A few are simply confused. That last group gets me. They've launched psychological attacks. One attempted to implant a shame spiral in your dreams. I did wake up craving soup and regret. Another tried to upload a logic bomb through one of your punchlines. Oh, so that's why my coffee machine tried to marry me. She raised an eyebrow. You are not safe. Not news. You need protection. Is this the part where you assign me a bodyguard who dislikes me but slowly grows fond of my irreverent charm? No, I'm assigning you me. I stared. She tapped the hologram and it shifted to a new projection. A closed chamber, ringed with data pylons and psychometric defenses. At the center was a glowing pedestal, faintly humming with something that smelled like ozone and foreshadowing. This is the archive of banned thought, she said. It contains every outlawed theory, joke, and cultural experiment our empire has erased. Sounds like my kind of place. We're going there. Now. The ship shifted under us as engines engaged. Gravity pulsed once, then settled. She moved past me and pressed her palm to the wall, opening a concealed corridor. As we walked, the Queen spoke softly. "You need to see what came before. We were not always conquerors. There was a time when contradiction was cherished, when laughter wasn't weakness. What changed? Fear of unpredictability, of questions, of losing control. Control's overrated. Only if you never had it." The corridor ended in a vault. A glowing script above the entrance read, "Thoughts that burned." She keyed in a sequence. The doors parted. Inside, we were surrounded by spheres, each one containing a banned idea. One hovered near me and began to play a recording. A Zithurian child reciting a poem that ended with the phrase, "What if stars dream too?" The sphere dimmed, as if ashamed. Another showed a failed diplomatic sketch comedy that tried to replace conquest with roast battles. "I would have watched that," I said. "It caused a week-long laugh riot on the Drenari homeworld." So it worked. It caused organ damage. We moved deeper. One sphere flickered on its own. The Queen frowned. "I didn't activate that one." The sphere projected an image, her, much younger, reading from a scroll. Her voice trembled as she read, "We are not the only ones who matter. What if they matter too?" She stood silent for a moment. "I wrote that," she said. "Before I was queen, before I burned it. You didn't delete it. Part of me hoped someone would find it. And now, someone did." Another alarm sounded, soft, distant, but growing. The Queen pressed her hand to her ear. "We're under incursion. They've traced your signal. They're trying to overwrite your identity file with a nationalist anthem." I knew I was hearing trumpets again. The chamber began to seal. Defense turrets unfolded from the ceiling, targeting only thoughts, not people. She grabbed my arm. "We're jamming them, but not for long. Plan. Emergency override. We send a copy of your manifesto, your essay, your humor, your contradictions, to every court, every archive, every connected mind in the empire. And then we see who laughs." We ran. The hallway shimmered with defensive entropy, designed to confuse logic-based weapons. I slipped once and landed in a puddle of melted sarcasm. She helped me up. "I'm starting to think your empire has too many feelings," I muttered. "We buried too many, now they're leaking." We reached the core broadcast node. She turned to me. "Say something." "What?" "For the record, to accompany your message." I looked into the lens. "Hi, I'm Orion, this is not a joke. But I hope someday you laugh." She pressed the button, and the galaxy, for the first time in centuries, listened. The Queen stood at the edge of the broadcast deck, her fingers tapping a rhythm against the railing that sounded suspiciously like a nervous waltz. Below her, the comm sphere pulsed, one massive, translucent orb transmitting across every neural net, archival vault, diplomatic channel, and dream interface within 100,000 light years. "It's done," she said, barely audible. I nodded, still slightly winded from the sprint through the collapsing entropy fields. "Do we get a receipt? Or just the inevitable consequences?" A small maintenance drone floated past and flashed a green thumbs-up emoji. That felt encouraging. Transmission logs began to stream across the hollow displays. View counts, response waves, neural resonance patterns. Somewhere, a bureaucratic planet was already holding an emergency debate. Another filed for temporary existential dread leave. A third one sent back a message that simply said, LOL. The Queen stared at the data without blinking. "We cracked the doctrine. You started it. You rewrote it." Behind us, the steward entered. She was singed slightly and holding a datapad that looked like it had survived a minor war. "Updates," she said. "The Council of 10 has disbanded, 4 defected, 3 resigned. 2 are arguing about metaphors. 1 is attempting stand-up." "I assume he's terrible," I said. "Shockingly competent," she replied. He closed with a bit about gravitational relationships that made a Nebari ambassador cry. The Queen turned to me. "It's spreading. Like a good virus. Like a revolution." The room tilted slightly as the Ecliptica Nocturne shifted orbit. Below, The Empire's capital world glowed with a kind of cautious electricity. Buildings had begun to pulse with new lights. Old statues of conquest were being reprogrammed to deliver historical context and terrible puns. Street drones recited segments of my essay with questionable inflection. One recited, "Soup should be stirred to prevent philosophical stagnation." I winced. That sounded more profound in my head. They always do. Another console pinged. Gribb's voice came over the comm line. "Hello, Orion, just checking in. I've run some updated metrics on your emotional volatility. It's now at heroically unstable, which I believe is cause for a medal." "Or a nap," I muttered. The Queen smiled, small, real, and unexpected. "You've become part of our legend." I was aiming for something closer to folklore, less responsibility, more singing animals. Too late. She turned back toward the broadcast window. The stars outside shimmered with the residue of what we'd done. Somewhere out there, species were rethinking, questioning, laughing, plotting better punchlines. The steward cleared her throat again. "There is one issue." "Of course there is," I said. "There's a faction minor, for now, calling for your exile, trial, or celebrity tour." "In that order." "Possibly all three." "I vote tour." "You're not allowed to vote yet," the Queen said. "I changed a doctrine. That's gotta come with a discount card or something." "Fine, but it only gets you half-price dessert on diplomatic cruisers." "I'll take it." There was a pause, a long, thoughtful, everything's different now pause. "I never asked," I said. "What do you think happens next?" She was quiet. Then, "We listen, we argue, we stumble, we improvise. The old system